Some games are known for truly innovative boss designs and, well, some aren't. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 boss designs that make no sense. Starting out with number 10 from the Final Fantasy VII Remake, the Swordipede. Most modern game bosses have designs that make some kind of sense. You can see how they basically work if the game is supposed to take place in a somewhat realistic setting, and that is mostly the case with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. There were a lot of goofy enemies in the original Final Fantasy VII, and if you're old school, then seeing these wacky designs return in a AAA game is pretty fun. One enemy I did not expect to see was this guy, the Swordipede, which is, exactly, in every possible way, what it sounds like. A flying centipede robot with swords sticking out of it. In terms of design, it's also really accurate to the original, and while it looked fine in the kind of abstract world of turn-based RPGs, seeing Swordipede in a full-blown action RPG like the remake is weird. It's jarring, to say the very least. Like, how does it fly? It seems not to have any rockets or jets. Like, it seems bizarre that it can even move in any way. And why would Shinra make something like this? Most of their robots have some kind of grounding. They make a certain degree of sense. Like, they've got guns and lasers mounted on them, but this is a segmented sword thing with a rotating spike wheel in the front. Like, it looks more likely to hurt itself than anyone else. It's a video game, so that doesn't really matter. If it looks cool, that's kind of all that really counts in the end. It just stands out because most of the other robots from the original game were updated to fit a little bit better to the more realistic world they were inevitably creating. But not this guy. Hell House even makes more sense than this. And number 9 is the Adjudicator from Demon's Souls. There's a lot of nasty, strange, and grotesque monsters in the Souls games, but in terms of bosses that I can't make sense of, this guy really stands out. You encounter him as the first boss of the Shrine of Storms, and he's basically a huge fat monster guy with no head, a giant tongue, and a glowing bird. And for whatever reason, it's got like a broken blade or something sticking out of its gut. I don't have any idea what this guy's deal is. Most other bosses you encounter fit the area you find them in. Like, there's a giant knight in a castle, there's a giant spider in the mines, a gargoyle in the creepy steeple area. Like, all of that makes sense. But then this dude comes along, appearing in a stormy shrine with skeletons, and he's kind of just a fat demon with a glowing bird head. And it's not stylized or anything, it's just a glowing bird on its head, which appears to be its weak point for whatever reason. Maybe the lore will explain this thing. Souls games are full of in-depth lore that can take most random things and make them seem totally rational. Let's look. Apparently, the Adjudicator grew fat from eating the demon slayers who attempted to penetrate deeper into the Shrine of Storms. That's some real creativity on display there. Seriously, nothing about the glowing bird on his head? The Adjudicator's shield is the only mention of this thing in the game, where it says the deceased souls are judged by a golden crow. And that seems to be it. I don't know why it's here, what its deal is, but it's a weird looking boss that doesn't fit in with where it lives. And number 8's an alien egg with a baby head inside, from Neo Contra. Contra games have never shied away from grotesque designs, but the PlayStation 2 entry called Neo Contra really just goes over the top with it. This boss is called, and I'm serious here, this is what its name officially is, Gigabon the Sarcophagus Head, and attempting to describe it is a challenge. It's a split-mouthed alien monster that has a giant baby head inside its mouth that just so happens to have another head on its forehead, because of course. The bio monsters and aliens you take on in these games rarely make any sense, but this thing really goes above and beyond with the nonsense. Where do you start? What are the teeth? What are they for? Especially given that there's another head inside of that head. Why does the baby have fully grown human teeth? How does this thing even close its mouth with those giant fangs? Would it not hurt? It's just all around nuts, and while it's probably not the most grotesque creature in the entire Contra menagerie, it's definitely among the most ridiculous and nonsensical. And number 7 is the huge hermit from Metal Slug 3. The Metal Slug games started out pretty relatively down to earth, at least for cartoony action shooters. Like in the first game, all you fight are various soldiers and their vehicles, all of which are lavishly animated. And that great animation continued up through Metal Slug 3, at very least, but at this point the enemies did get a little wackier. Case in point, this thing, a giant hermit crab that uses a tank as its shell. Why is it attacking you? I don't know, it just is. Keep in mind, it's not being controlled by the bad guy army or anything. You just kind of run into it randomly and wow, wants you dead. It even uses the cannons from the tank on you and everything. How? I don't know, but I'll be damned if the animation on this thing isn't fantastic. Metal Slug 3 is probably one of the most absurd action shooters ever made. It seems like there's something crazy happening at absolutely every turn, but at least most of that makes some kind of sense. This huge hermit crab thing doesn't. And number 6 is Gigadeath and the Statue of Liberty from Ninja Gaiden 2 and Sigma 2. The original Ninja Gaiden games didn't even pretend to make sense, even if today they're known for being one of the first games to include narrative cutscenes. They threw all kinds of nonsense at you, logic be damned, and it almost feels like Ninja Gaiden 2 on Xbox 360 was trying to do something similar. For the most part, various enemies you encounter in the game have some sort of logic behind them, like they're ninja warriors or demons, but I had to highlight 2 bosses because wow, do they stand out. First is Gigadeath, which you encounter in New York City subway system, and I don't know what it's supposed to be. Looks like a shiny silver fish thing that flies through the sky. Oh, and it's got a human face like Seaman from the Dreamcast era. Don't know why. Doesn't look even remotely similar to anything you faced up to this point, and you can't even really fight it normally. It mostly floats around and tries to bash you into the wall with its face. And maybe this is being a little pedantic, but I can't help but be baffled by the Statue of Liberty boss at the end of the New York stage. On one hand, it's so ridiculous that it's funny. On the other, it really doesn't fit with the general tone this game is going for. Like, the Statue of Liberty walking around in Ghostbusters 2, okay, that's fine. It's technically a comedy movie. But in Ninja Gaiden, it's more a kind of like, what is going on here? Why is this happening? And you'd think it'd do something with the statue's famous torch and tablet, but no, they just disappear after the cutscene. So it's just a basic giant monster boss with, Liberty. And number 5 is the Winter Winster from Wario World. In terms of weirdness, Mario games tend to play it fairly safe. Even the more experimental entries like Mario Odyssey, there's not really anything particularly out there enough to earn a spot on this list. That's why we're digging a little deeper for this one. Wario World for the GameCube is one of Wario's only fully 3D adventures, and it's weird, like very weird. There's a ton of bosses to be found in this game, and they're all unusual, but the Winter Winster of the Shivering Mountains is easily the most nonsensical. It is a giant, disturbingly realistic head on a tiny little body, and for some reason it floats around the arena dropping boulders. Just on appearances alone, this guy does not look like he belongs in a Nintendo game. Something about it just isn't right. And also, it has an attack where its eyes glow red, and if Wario looks at it, he gets inflated, and the only way to stop it is to look away. The whole fight's absolutely bizarre, and really everything in this game is weird, but this guy's straight up creepy. And number 4 is the Dumb Drum from Donkey Kong Country. Name says it all, by the way. Dumb Drum is a big drum, literally. And nothing about it makes any sense. Like, how's it moving around? Why are these enemies in it? And why does it just die for no reason? Clearly, Rare was just kind of running out of time at this point because this guy is dire. It is a barrel that tries to smash you and then spawns a few enemies. Knock them out, and then it does the whole thing over again but spawns new types of enemies. You do it 5 times total and it just dies. You never hit it or anything, it just gives up, I guess. Every other boss is some kind of animal enemy, so having an inanimate object attack you out of nowhere is confusing. The only explanation for this thing comes from the official strategy guide, and it says it's a mechanical sort of beast, which is about as vague as it gets. Like, is it a robot or is it not? Who knows? And, well, I guess honestly, who cares? It's nonsensical in every possible way. But the biggest problem with it is that it's not really that good of a boss either. And number 3 is the Egg Crusher from Sonic the Hedgehog. Dr. Robotnik, or Eggman, is an evil genius and nemesis of Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's managed to put some impressive stuff through the years, including an entire Death Star with his face on it. But in Sonic 1, his inventions were a little more humble. The final boss in the first Sonic game is kind of pathetic. You'd think Eggman would have some impressive weapon to reveal at the end, but no, he's got this thing called the Egg Crusher, and it's even more pathetic than it sounds. It's just a room-sized machine with 4 pistons. And if that's all it was, it would be pretty lame, but not quite nonsensical. But this is why we think it makes no sense. For some reason, Eggman just randomly pilots one of these crushers each time the pistons come out. And that's how you beat him. You have to attack the piston that he is occupying, which is weak because he's in it, which just doesn't make any sense at all. Why would he do that? Why would he stand in one of these things? It doesn't seem like he needs to be in them for them to just do a piston thing. I mean, there is an explanation, and it's game mechanics. The only reason he appears here is the boss needs a weak point, you know? But if your final boss is so basic it doesn't even make sense for the bad guy to be there, there might be a mild problem with it. And number 2 is the World of Chaos from Kingdom Hearts. Of course, we have to do a final boss from a JRPG on this list. And there's very few out there that can beat the World of Chaos from the original Kingdom Hearts in terms of WTF-ness, I guess. At its core, it's basically the same thing as a lot of other Final Fantasy-style last bosses. A big amalgam of flesh all slapped together with multiple bodies and heads sticking out. But a few design elements make it especially strange to me. For one, it's shaped like a big airship for some reason, almost like the Highwind from Final Fantasy VII. The tail is also very odd. I mean, how many giant flesh monsters have tails? Then there's the weird intestine dome, for lack of a better word, on the back where the actual final boss part sits. Like, what's supposed to be happening there? And then Ansem himself at the top with his body half sticking out of a weird ghoul-looking creature. Like, it's a lot to take in. Most enemies in Kingdom Hearts follow a theme, but this one does not. Just throws out the rules and goes all in on the flesh monster airship in what is supposed to be a kid's game. And finally, this thing from Janoog. This is just truly bizarre. A perfect end for this list. Janoog is one of these weird shmups from back in the day. These games love huge flesh mobs and psychosexual imagery as much as they love being ball-bustingly hard, and this game is no exception. Every boss you face in this thing is like really, really weird, but the boss I want to highlight here is the guy you face at the end of stage 5. Like, the things I'm going to say are going to feel weird because just looking at it is enough, but it's a lumpy-bodied worm man that's bleeding, and it seems to have a giant phallus on its body that covers the entire bottom third of the screen. I mean, that's not what it is, but also what the heck is it? Even in terms of nonsensical, gross shmup monsters, this is especially nonsensical and gross. How is any of this supposed to function? I mean, it doesn't even look like he can attack you. In real life, something like that would just be begging for death, not flinging hundreds of projectiles at you. It should come as no surprise the game was developed by Masaya, the same guys who made those insane Sho Aniki games. Apparently the same graphic designer even worked on both games. And a quick bonus for you, Mara from Shin Megami Tensei. Obviously, we don't need to say a lot about this. We've brought it up in a previous video about crazy boss designs, and yeah, it's nuts. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever at all. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.